Thank you. So I think very interesting. We talk about the government getting into a fintech sector and acting as an architect. I think it's something which is unique, which has happened in India, and obviously few more countries we will talk about it. I'll give you a basic context. Whenever we look from inside out, you may be thinking that not much has happened. Okay, eKYC is not that big, or maybe the payments is not very big. But when you walk around and I was listening to Jim Maru yesterday in Finovate in Dubai. He was talking about eKYC being so critical, and we already got over with it, right? So the point is, we have moved ahead in many leaps and bounds, and it's all driven by government, be it Aadhaar, be it demonetization, be it GST. GST itself has been implemented. Yes, there are risks. It's a fintech kind of risk which existed. They have taken it. So I think we have an eminent panel here, and I am the only guy who is not associated with any government right now. So I'm feeling outnumbered by them, and I'm sure they will take, maybe if I ask some difficult question, they may actually take some action, I don't know. So what we will talk about is, we will talk about each of these different areas, how things have happened. Quick context from an India perspective, we all talk about Aadhaar stack, India stack itself. And so therefore I'll start with Venki first. So Venki, you give a context to the audience here about India stack and how it is used, and what's your roadmap forward, how you're thinking about it.
So indiastack.org is the website, and IndiaStack is a name that we have given to a set of technologies. So eKYC, e-signature is built on top of Aadhaar. Digital locker is being built by the Ministry of IT. UPI is it's being rolled out by the National Payment Corporation of India. And the fourth layer, which is the consent layer, is work in progress, and that's part of the discussions around privacy, etc. So all these layers put together are called IndiaStack, and a theoretical use case or a use case would be that if I come to you for a loan, I will give my consent using e-signature. You look at my data, run your algorithms on it, and then come back to me with a contract. I sign it using e-signature, and then you put money into my bank account using UPI. So the entire transaction end-to-end digitally can be done within a few minutes, and this is all running on public rails instead of private rails, and that I think is the key distinction in India.
Thanks, Venki. So moving on to Terry, from your perspective, how government can help in fintech environment, and how your government is working on it in Canada.
So that's a very big question, so I'll keep it short. I think first of all that the government, from a Canadian perspective, has a pure regulatory role. When we think back to the financial crisis, we're very proud in Canada that our banks were relatively unaffected. Closer? Is it good? Okay. We're relatively unaffected because of the regulatory environment, and it's really about combining innovation, the right regulatory environment, the right people, and to be frank, investment in money. So I think that the government sees its role in this kind of, I was very struck by the other people here. It really is a private-public partnership when we talk about FinTech. And having said that, the government is also a customer. We also have our own data to protect, our own privacy issues, and that's really where I think we have an excellent opportunity to really feature our companies, bring in the research and some of the solutions that can be then brought into the private sector as well.
So is there any learning which we have or collaboration which we can have with your government in Ontario and India, so that we can actually do cross-pollination of ideas, which you think right now?
I mean, I think events like this are obviously a platform. There are other platforms in North America as well. What I find as a non-specialist, already listening to you, I'm just so impressed with the level of detail. It's really the question of, are we talking about something that's ready right now? Are we talking about something in 5 to 10 years? And to bring the right people together. There are several events also in North America, and we are hoping to bring a delegation to this event next year. And my role here as the representative of the Government of Ontario and India is to exactly foster that kind of research collaboration that can benefit both sides.
Thanks, Harry. So I think when we talk about FinTech, normally we talk about Mumbai. So we would always think that Mumbai will be the FinTech capital of Asia. And here comes Vizag out of nowhere and try to disrupt, again, like a FinTech kind of movement for us. So Lata, from your side, how exactly is the AP government working on it? And what is it, if let's say some of our FinTechs here want to move and do some work out there. Even what you said, I also want to set up something out there.
So just expanding on what Venkatesh said, there is the India stack. So there is a technological framework that any of the startups can use. And I'm sure at the national level, we'll have much more of a broader open banking API developing as well as sandboxes. So those are things that we would do at the national level. So what we do in WISAC is actually building an ecosystem for FinTech. What does that mean? We are working on 5 M's to build that ecosystem. One is manpower. So if you are a startup and you want to be in any city, you want to make sure that you have the talent that is made available to you. So we've started institutes in deep technologies, be it blockchain, be it cybersecurity, be it AI. Second, you want market access, right? And I think this is most important, that you, as a startup, you want business, right? I mean, in addition, I'll come to the other M's in a bit. So we have, set up a use case repository. So we work with financial institutions, and she talked about government being a customer, right? So we've also got use cases from the government. And those use cases we are opening up to startups through our knowledge partner, KPMG. And then, they can pick it up, they can do a POC and then expand that into business. So to me, this M is the most important M, which is market access. Third is money. So we connect them to venture funds. We also setting up our own fund, but I don't think money is that much of a concern for the startup. They want talented people, which is manpower. They want to make sure that they have market access. Fourth is meet and greet. So not only do we do all of the others that I've just spoken about, but we also want to make sure that they have networking opportunities, right? So they meet other like-minded startups. So a lot of meet and greet activities, like what's happening right now here, but we had our blockchain event in October, which was very well represented. And we have our festival coming up in September where we're going to launch a $1 million challenge. And finally, the most important, and she alluded to that, is MOUs, or Memorandums of Understanding, which is private-public partnership, right? So we have forged a number of partnerships with private companies that are helping us develop the ecosystem. We've done it with Visa, which is helping us develop a cashless economy in WISAC, MasterCard, Frampton, Templeton, many, right? So all of them contribute in some way to help develop the ecosystem. So this is how we are approaching our journey.
Thanks, Radha. I think quite interesting. And thankfully now even Maharashtra has a policy and we should be competing hard. Nobody will help. I mean, a lot of people think that hub of Asia will always be Singapore. I think we are here to take our stakes. It can be Mumbai, it can be Vizag, it should be India for sure, right?
In fact, I'm sorry, I'll remiss if I don't mention that. MAS is a big partner. So
we will compete with them as well, right? So they're also partners. So Dharmi, I think from a Bahrain perspective, Bahrain's claim to fame obviously is financial industry. They are really deep into it. When I was there in last month and meeting a lot of guys there, I think the potential is very huge. And we also see that the government is doing a lot of support. So Dharmi, from your perspective, what exactly is happening in Bahrain and why fintechs here should look at Bahrain as a potential place for supporting or working out there? One thing is sure, they pay more than Indians, right? So you be aware that if there is a segment to be attacked, Bahrain and Middle East is a decent place to work in.
Thanks to all my panelists as well. And I think great question in terms of your experience in the Middle East. But I think if I take a step back, really this time last year when I was at the FinTech, what were our milestones? What were we talking about? And what have we as government achieved in terms of reform? So I generally categorize that into the 5 C's. So this time last year we were talking about the cloud, and today very proudly we can say that AWS is going to set up an infrastructure in the region. And I think the cloud first policy, we are the first country in the Middle East to have that cloud first policy in terms of the public cloud. So everything that the government does, if it can be done on the cloud, will be hosted on the cloud. The second and most important was the regulatory sandbox. And I think, again, And we were the first in the region to have the crowdfunding platform, both equity-based and Sharia-compliant-based. Now, a little bit on the sandbox because it differs from region to region. Ours is more of a virtual space where the central bank has conventional licenses that are available. But if there are no licenses available for that innovation, we invite the innovation to be tested in that virtual space, working with the central bank as a watchdog, working with the regulated entities to test your innovation, and then go out full flow as a full company, right? So that's the other C, the change and the constant reform that the government is undertaking. I think one of the things that we've done very well is collaborate and connect. We've connected with the Abu Dhabi global market, helping the region connect within Bahrain and address the Abu Dhabi FinTech corridor to address the MENA region using the two places. We work very well with the Singapore consortium, and we've just set up a Bahrain FinTech Bay where we'll be helping international companies to launch themselves using again Bahrain's test bed, the small market to go out. So that's the fourth connect, and and the constant change in the reform is, I think, what's made Bahrain, a front runner. So we've brought out the trust law, we've brought out the jurisdiction law. As we speak, we are working on the data jurisdiction law and the data IP laws, and I think that's going to help the international companies realize the potential and the value of and the opportunity that, as you rightly mentioned, on how Bahrain can help them use the untapped market in the regulated entities and use that as a test bed.
Dharmi, from a cross-border collaboration at the government level, are you working with anybody beyond, let's say, with any entity in India at the government level?
Yes, we are. We are talking to several companies individually, and we've. I can very proudly say that 3 or 4 blockchain-oriented use cases in various industries are using our regulatory sandbox as we speak, and we are working with a couple of states to see whether we can collaborate on a government-to-government level as well.
Okay, so basically a tie-up is possible between KFC government and the Ontario. We can clearly see it here. So moving to Dan, Dan from a UK perspective, I think FinTech capital of the world as of now is London, right? Or we claim so?
We definitely think so.
Okay.
But as we've heard, there's a lot going on around the world supporting FinTech, so I always try and put it in a lot of context, because there's some similarities, but there's also some differences. I always look at it in sort of 3 broad areas. So there's the activist approach, so Singapore, where they do everything from get your office space, invest in the FinTech, open APIs, so that they do everything. They're not just like a regulatory state, they're actively supporting it. Through to more of an absent state, like America. Usually innovative, but the regulators don't really have a strategy. Some are looking at it, some aren't, and it's a bit more of a mixed picture. And I always look at the UK, and India's like this as well in terms of an enabling state. So regulation to try and encourage innovation without actively doing it. So things like open banking will create a new market, or bespoke regulation around peer-to-peer lending or equity crowdfunding, which is the world first. And of course, the UK was the first to implement a regulatory sandbox to test new ideas, all enabling new ideas to come to market. So broadly fits within that view, I think.
So when you talk about sandbox, I think wanted to know your perspective. How exactly is your sandbox configured? And maybe if there is any other input on sandboxes, because sandbox again is a word which is used in different ways. Some people talk about it as a platform where you can do some testing. Others are saying it where you can take it to production. So what's your sandbox? And we talk quick round on sandbox itself. At least we'll get rid of this puzzle called sandbox.
Sure. So you're right. They're all different. There's sort of a common language around them, but they're all very different. So. Broadly, they're about testing new ideas before they go to market, whether on consumers or on financial services products, in a safe environment, in partnership with the regulator. Some, for instance, like Australia, are a waiver around particular rules, so not really a sandbox in the section you might imagine, but they'll allow you to do some certain things. The rules have been relaxed. Others are about encouraging innovation coming into the market, as we've heard from Bahrain. So, again, working in partnership with the regulator, but looking to attract investment from around the world. The UK's entire approach to regulating FinTech and the sandbox was around competition. So in 2013, the FCA was given the competition mandate to address the highly concentrated banking market. The sandbox is very much focused around bringing new entrants into the market, testing ideas, without really relaxing the rules, but under certain conditions, both for the regulators to understand what's happening in the market, but also for the firms themselves to be able to test and develop their ideas on a live data set. So the focus and strategy around the FCA has very much been around supporting competition in the market, and that's more or less everything that the UK has done around FinTech.
Okay, and anyway, we will talk about Europe. It's all those PSD2, right? So, you want?
Samir, I wanted to make a quick point since you asked the question about cross-country collaboration. I think when we built India Stack, the idea was to use technology to bring down the cost of transactions. And if you look at many other countries around the world, Kenya, etc., they have very similar issues, and they are mobile first, etc. So there's a lot of interest in looking at technologies like India Stack and leveraging that. So around 20 different governments have come up and said that we want to look at leveraging India Stack. So they will call it something else, Kenya Stack or whatever. But there's a huge amount of interest, and in a sense, it's soft power of India's software technology. I just wanted to make
correct. And the RBI is obviously this recent paper is also looking at potentially developing a sandbox. But everything that the India government and regulators have been doing around FinTech has been around inclusion, using digital to bridge that divide. So the sandbox approach in India would obviously be different and have a different set of outcomes than what they're looking to do in the UK. And I think that's very assessment.
So, I think coming back to the old question, we will come back on the sandbox. So, PSD2 wise, how is the reaction of various entities and banks out there, and where are we on the journey right now? I'm talking from a pure UK perspective on the PSD2.
So the UK is interpreting PSD2 through its own rules and regulation on the CMA 9, which the 9 largest banks have been ordered by the competition regulator to provide a standard set of APIs, as we heard earlier on from the keynote actually. So they're looking to create a common set of standards. PSD2 provides the legal framework to do that. Only a limited number of banks have actually got there in terms of the deadline, which was January. But slowly but surely this is going to start to come online. The mood music coming out of banks is very positive. They see this as an opportunity, but clearly there are some threats to owning that relationship with fintechs themselves. The idea again here is all about competition. So again, it's a highly concentrated market. The government and the regulators want to bring new players in to own that relationship. And obviously with new information, with payment information, transaction information, you can lower the cost of credit, lend to new people with information or potentially with thin credit files, bringing a whole new raft of players into that space. But obviously in India, you've got the UPI, and the data around the stack and the identity, which ultimately provides that same data. So you're already ahead of the curve, to be fair, and we're catching up.
Okay. So this is interesting. We talk so much about PSD2, but our Indian version of including from a KYC perspective, or you talk payment perspective, a lot of stuff is already there. And when you say payment, UPI is just not payments, it's collection as well. So it's a payment gateway done by the banks on which everybody can write. So moving on, I think if you look at Indian context, it's largely driven by UIDAI, which is Aadhaar, and NPCI, which is handling the payment side, and GSTN, which is handling the GSTN side of it. So 3 entities have driven a lot of changes in the market. I think the open question from my side would be that why India doesn't have a National Lending Corporation of India, which talks about innovation in lending side, which ensures that a lot of things which we talk, for example, UPI came up, so the payments and collections become easier. Why it has not happened on the lending side, which is the biggest issue which we have. The getting money from anybody else in current processes is very, very difficult. How do you ensure that there's a common API structures which are available? If we talk about Sybil check, right, or any of the credit check, why can't my other checks, including what I did with, let's say, Amazon, can be made available to others to use? So I think some level of work has to be done on the credit side. Today we have GST, but what about invoices? Can invoices be on common framework, because invoice details are always common? So can we put in a single structure so that anybody and everybody can consume it and figure out that? So anyway, these are some of the thoughts or process which I had. For example, on UPI can do payment. Can I take on UPI loans? And we make a simple API in which you merge the request for loan with a sort of process by which you can actually send your credit details and get the money out. So some of these things should be in work in progress. I think that's the area where we should see in next 1 or 2 years movement. So in which way we talk about the positive side, and so let's talk about the challenges. Venki, what challenges do you see in implementing any of these things? Because whenever government does anything, there's more to it. If anybody else does, it's okay, but government is always opposed. So any perspective of what challenges are there and how we are overcoming those?
I think financial inclusion has been a huge challenge in India. I think
Everywhere.
Yes.
Seriously, it's a theme in North America. It's a theme everywhere.
Yeah. So the privatization, the public sector banks were created for that particular purpose. But if you look at it, that's not really solve the problem. And we believe the only way to do that is by really dramatically bringing down the cost of transactions. And if you look at if you look at Aadhaar authentications, there have been about 10 billion Aadhaar authentications that have been done, and the cost of each authentication is about 1 paisa, which is not even a fraction of a cent. So that's one, I won't say challenge, but it's an opportunity. Technology-driven, technology-created opportunity. And I think the lending piece that you mentioned is another huge opportunity. In the next few years, on the back of UPI data, on the back of GST data, with GST there will be about 5 billion invoices that will be online every month. And these will be digitally signed and verified invoices. So, I can give you consent and issue a token to you as a lender to look at my GST data, and you will get the data straight from the GST server once the ledger APIs are up and running. What that means is that the cost of verifying the invoice comes down dramatically.
Correct.
So on the back of all this, I think data-driven lending is going to become a huge opportunity. So challenge and opportunity.
Obviously, talked about financial education. Well, empowering people with the data is obviously going to bring new challenges around. What does that actually mean? So, open banking for many years, consumers have been told to keep their data secret, not to give it away, and now all of a sudden you're being empowered with that data. So I think there's a messaging piece around suddenly people who have control of that. How do I get a better deal with my data? How do I control it, understand it? GDPR provide data portability in Europe and the UK. So again, how's that messaging going to get out there to fully utilise some of the opportunities that open banking and data, again, through things like EPI here in India, people can be empowered with it rather than financial banks and other providers that can use it without any benefit to the consumer. So I think having a journey for consumers to understand the power they have is going to be key.
Okay. I think to add to what Dan said, once you have the consent network up and running, what that means is that I as a user will be able to leverage my UPI data, my GST data, etc. to get better credit terms for myself. So that I think is the final piece, and I think the word that you used is empowerment, and this will be truly empowering for Indian borrowers. And I think just one last statement that I want to add is that we don't realize it right now, but with 10 billion authentications having happened, and if you look at UPI, in just 18 months, UPI has transcended credit card and debit card transactions in the last 18 years.
So one quick question. How many here have used UPI till now? And how many have you not used it? Okay, please use it. You will realize in 1 second what has happened in India. I would be honest about it. We attend so many sessions, but I've seen the result of one transaction. Once you do a UPI transaction, you realize things have dramatically changed. So just one input, use the technology. It will help you in visualizing future much better.
So last one sentence is that I think we've built one of the most modern financial technology infrastructure anywhere in the world, and I think that's something that we have to give huge credit to the Indian government. We don't really realize that.
Okay.
So, talking about challenges, I think the governments across the globe, and India included, are doing quite a bit. That's not the issue at all. I also wear a corporate hat. I think the organizations and corporates need to do more, right? Even when it came to using India Stack to do, straight-through processing for new business, it wasn't as easy to get it done within a corporate because the culture and the mindset of organizations haven't changed as much. I think that's a big one. Certainly government, and I've been working with Andhra Pradesh now for 2.5 years, very progressive. Extremely, that's a progressive, but even other governments within India are very progressive. You'll be amazed as to the kind of things Rajasthan is doing, right?
Okay.
Rajasthan, which you would least expect, right? They are doing amazing stuff on AI and so on. So I think corporates have to rise to the occasion.
Okay, okay.
From an international perspective, while looking at the GCC landscape, I think one of the things that that geography is going to see is a skill challenge. Right, and that's a huge potential and opportunity for Indian national companies.
Skill challenge, guys. You focus on that region, you will make more money as
Yes.
well, and more use cases can be implemented. I think
But I
that's where it
think
is.
what India has done, and similarly what Bahrain government has done, and if I can sort of draw out some similarities, is the upskilling or the reskilling program that Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched at NASSCOM last week. And I think a similar program does exist in Bahrain, where the government has the appetite and has realized the skill gap and is willing to skill the local Bahraini,
Okay.
right, to today's skills.
Okay.
So much so that the salary subsidies and the training grants are provided to the skill, the learning and development company, right? So that's going to be a huge area where the Indian companies can see that opportunity and catapult that to another level.
I think just one point from there, we talk so much about skills. I think skills, we always think from a ground level perspective. I think the skill is required at the board and CEO level, right? So if they don't have a skill and understanding of what's happening on the FinTech arena and how it will impact, they are still counting money on the branches side. I think that's a challenge. So I think we need to sort some of those issues. Maybe I think there's a direct conversation required between the country's CEO, which is PM Modi, and the CEOs of the company, and maybe any of these places. Yeah.
So when I was in City, we had reverse mentoring, right? So the CEOs were attached to people that were very forward thinking, and then you reverse mentor them. So,
Okay.
So I talk to companies a lot, and they all talk about access to talent, which I think goes to your point. Talent can be at the beginning or the end of careers, not just at the very, very beginning. But also they worry about intellectual property. And I think that a lot of the companies that we're talking about, their value is intellectual property. And that's something where international collaboration is really key. And because if your property is in danger anywhere, it's basically the company is in danger. And I think that's one of the factors that I see as a risk for these startups, that they can't protect themselves well enough. But as the government, I am much more interested in the point you rose, which is about accessibility, social mobility, and privacy. Because I think the companies they have to pay attention to the bottom line today, but these are problems, as we've seen in the past, for companies that can blow up later, and that's really more our role to make sure that there's a level playing field for all of society.
Agreed. On a practical level, I'm here with 10 UK FinTech companies on a mission, and they're all keen to invest and set up here in India. So please check out the information at the back of the DIT stand across a whole range of sectors: identity, remittance, biometrics, the whole lot. So on a practical level, we're looking to collaborate in an actual financial way. On another way, I think...
You intend to fund as well, right?
Pardon?
You intend to fund as well?
Fund? Me? We just brought them here. I'm not going to personally fund them, but hopefully someone in the room will. On another level, I think there's a lot of work to put on together on a regulatory basis. So the RBI, with their recent paper, looking at a lot of areas the FCA have already implemented, so learnings and failings on that, on how to support FinTech. But also, I think on the other way around, FCA is running a tech sprint or a hackathon on eKYC, new methods in May. They're doing a lot of tech sprints, a lot to learn from what's happened in India, the whole program around DAR and other things that potentially could be implemented in Europe and other markets. So I think on a regulatory basis, on a standards basis, again, APIs around open banking and UPI are all, again, learning from each other. I think on a regulatory standard basis, we could collaborate much more in the future.
There you had a point. Okay. So interestingly, till now we have not spoken about Bitcoin. I hope it is okay. I hope it's okay. Okay. We are not talking about any glamorous stuff, real stuff. Okay. So I think with this, I open this for a question and answer. Anything you want to ask, please ask. These are the right people here who are in power as well. Okay, so you can ask questions.
Hi. So you were talking about the culture in the corporates around the policies and the new things that are happening and the pace at which things move, right? Are there any practical steps that corporates take towards improvising this culture and sort of making speed a sort of a greater factor in the way the operations are done or new policies are thought in? Especially towards, I'm coming from a startup, I'm experimentation takes a lot of a backlog. It's a very slow process. So, is there anything practical that is done in corporates to sort of speed up things in this regard?
Doing, Bajaj Bits are doing, RBL doing. RBL says partners ka bank. So while you may still be going to RBL and saying your work is not happening, but they are already solving their problem, right? They're not solving your problem, they're solving their own problem. So this is where the journey is.
No, and just to add, we, for example, in Andhra Pradesh, run an accelerator. And we don't run it in a manner that you take equity. We're genuinely just a catalyst. So you have the supply side, you have the demand side. And I understand where you're coming from. There is a gap, and the gap is real, right? In some cases, people have products which are no-brainers, and therefore banks or insurance companies take them because they're so apparent. But some need a little more hand-holding, and we as a government have launched an accelerator, and I'm sure other governments and other institutions will act as catalysts without taking equity, because then the play becomes very different, right? Genuinely playing a catalyst role, and hopefully that will develop the ecosystem.
Well, that was the idea behind the Innovation Hub at the FCA, particularly in financial services anyway, that they needed to communicate with startups in a different way, that actually during this process of being regulated, capital burn meant that you'd probably be finished by the time you got regulated. So they changed their approach and brought a way of communicating and giving what they called informal steers, so leading you in a way, so helping consult with the startup and helping them bring them to market. Obviously, because they needed more people to come online. So that was the initial idea.
And certainly the government has tried to move in where they saw that there was gaps in the ecosystem. So for example, about 10 years ago, there wasn't very much venture capital. So the government started a venture capital fund, which is privately run, independent, but there's more money available. There's several zone startups here, was a partnership with a startup zone in Canada, and it includes hand-holding, mentoring, business development. In the end, I have to tell you, everyone has to do their own business. We can't pretend there's an easy method. But the governments, I think all here are trying to analyze our local situations and bridge those gaps. And that's what we're hoping that our role is.
So if I paraphrase the question, it's, how do you get companies to accept innovation, and how do you, disseminate innovation rapidly in society? So for that, we have a term which we call winning implementation. So for example, when eKYC came up, we went to a whole host of telcos and other organizations and evangelized that. But everybody said, oh, our paper KYC process is working well. Then Jio came in and said that we want to leverage eKYC. So their cost of customer acquisition was about 4 rupees vis-a-vis 100 rupees for the paper KYC process. And they were able to onboard millions of, about 140 million customers on board. So that was a winning implementation for us. So what we do is like a shark, we keep hunting for winning implementation. Now in UPI, Axis did a brilliant winning implementation. In BBPS, now, incidentally, commercial break. We have a BBPS workshop on 1st March, and all of you are welcome to attend. But in BBPS, we are again looking for corporates that are willing to take this technology and run with it and create a winning implementation. Once the winning implementation is done, then our iSpirit's role is over, and the consulting firms, they take over, and so anybody else who comes to us, we say, we are not interested anymore. You talk to the consulting firms. But if you are interested in creating a winning implementation, we will work with you.
But I completely empathize with what you said, because I've been in the bank and I've been in an insurance company. Both of them used to say, or still say, that they are a technology company with a banking license or an insurance license, right? So deep down in the DNA, they want to build, and that's how they are. So I fully empathize.
I think it's good that they don't understand, so that you can exist. Tomorrow, if they understand that they start doing all that stuff, I think FinTech will not exist. So you need to be careful about, if they push your agenda too hard, they will become that much innovative and that, right? So it's okay. Thanks. Any other question, or you guys will buzz me out? Do we have more? We can ask one or two more questions.
I think you scared them. You said they're people with power, right?
It's so self-explanatory that they...
Okay, I think if there's no more question, we close.